All right. So here we are, number
Oh,
seven of the Girls Club. And today we have Brittany Ashby and Leslie Powers and myself as well. And today we're just going to keep it nice and light. We're going to do a little bit of reading and then we're going to go from there and see how it goes. So I'm going to share my screen, usual. Okay.
dun 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 dun.
Can we see that?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Okay, so, oops. So, who are we and what do we do? This is I just wanted us to go through this and just evaluate some of the work we've done in the past, where we're going to go, and a little bit of who we are. I thought this was a good time to start doing this kind of stuff and do an episode with just this kind of thing. Because there's been Um, great feedback, really great feedback from the people who've been watching our episodes and great support. But I think there's been maybe a little bit as well, some confusion about what the point is of our show, which I would say is about, women who are getting involved and talking about some much needed things to talk about that are just down to earth and practical and how to use the knowledge that we now know and have gained and learned in the real world. So, to read off the little article I wrote this month. The last 6 months have been so amazing. The Girls Club was formed in November of 2023 and has only grown into such a great group of women. Women who know what morality and ethics truly are, who have an affinity for truth and actively express their most authentic selves. Together we are Leslie Powers, Brittany Ashby, Brittany Anderson, and Sarah Cross. Through our individual journeys, we have discovered that there is an element missing within the message of speaking truth. That is, there is not enough physical women speaking out actively. So this is the call to action, ladies. Come and contact us. Find us on Facebook and wherever else and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Typically, even though all men and women are equal, we all have unique traits that contribute to a truly moral world. The physical man has a great ability to create a physical action based on the non-physical thought and emotion, while the physical woman has a great ability to tap into the thought and emotion that inspires action. It is a beautiful syncing up of the microcosm and the macrocosm. This is, in my perspective, the most natural process and behavior for all life. That being said, the world is facing a dark age. We are slipping into madness, disorder, and a world where our spiritual connections to who and what we really are is so fragile that we are fracturing. So So exceptions must be made in order to get back to a balance a natural, that is natural so that life continues to enhance in all the right ways. This means we all need to learn how to bend like a reed in the wind. We must all face the fears we have and step up to the proverbial plate. As the team that we are in this reality, we must be able to step out of our comfort zones and pers- enact the ability of action that we all have access to and do what is required in order to correct the dysfunction. It means, though our perspectives on all the small things can vary, we are all part of the same team and we must act like it. It does not matter if we disagree on this detail or that detail. What matters is if we know the difference between right and wrong and how we enforce this using thought, emotion, and action. It matters how we practice nonviolence, self-defense of force, and care. We are a team, so let's huddle, guys. What is the plan and how are we going to enforce it?
Mm. Well written.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Ah, I really like this opportunity to kind of huddle as women and share our unique perspectives. There's like a freedom I feel in us coming together as women. There's like a permission, in a sense, to share and talk about the unique experiences of women and our roles as mothers, our experience as daughters, et cetera, right? And how it relates to natural law, and our feminine care. So it's cool. Yeah.
I really like that too, and how you had spoken about whether we agree on all the details or not, we're still coming together to discuss those. And I don't think I've like super disagreed with anything you guys have really said, but I love that us coming together and being different people and having different experiences. Just hearing that really allows me to learn from you guys too and see where I resonate and relate. And I also agree, Leslie, like I don't get a ton of lady time out here, so I really value being able to come together with other women, just being ourselves and talking about topics that are important to us. And then of course sharing it so that other people who feel similarly um, can chime in or hop on or yeah, I guess we'll see what comes of that. We've had some really awesome guest speakers in these last 6 episodes, and yeah, some cool ones to come. I'll just say that.
I like the sisterhood building,
Me too.
some of the most the women there's a complex history in the relationships among women, and when I found women that I feel kind of like safe with and nurtured by, it's one of the most fulfilling experiences. So I think it's really important that we come together in unity.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there is definitely a stigma in our human history, at least on this planet, where when too many women get together, and this is historical patterns that I've read in my own research, too many women start to get together and start, you know, you know, getting shit done, as I usually call it, or just being part of the activity, being part of the group, being part of the sisterhood. Um, Other things in the world start to move from that. Not that, that in itself is this big, powerful, magical force, but that's where it's always been equated to as something, like people don't understand it or people get, worried. Like in history, we've had all kinds of different things when it comes to women in groups, and it usually equates down to like women doing like practicing stuff like witchcraft and things like that. Or you get women who, it turns into, it has kind of a stigma behind it, I think, and it's always, no matter what the reason why the women are coming together, and it always leaves some sort of impression, I find, in like the communities that surround those women, whether it's a good one or a bad one. So I kind of feel like historically the patterns suggest that there's some kind of at least community power in that, because we're coming together and we're all on the same page despite, our individual, the minutiae details that don't really matter. Like all those things are kind of irrelevant because we all have the same ultimate goals. And I'd like to say, with just to plug the group, which I actually had thought about, like, oh, I wish there was like a group of women who were doing this. And it's the great, what do they call it, Leslie?
The One Great Work?
No,
No.
the group of guys that Chris is in and Derek.
Oh,
and
the Great Work Warriors.
That's right, the Great Work Warriors.
That's cool.
Who is
I haven't seen that.
it's a great group of guys, and I think they meet about once a month, and put out
Oh,
a
maybe I have
new.
seen that.
Yeah. So it's easy to find. We'll put a link down into the description when we publish this video. But I think it's kind of interesting to see that, I thought. And it was the first thing I kind of thought of, because even though you have like guys clubs and, all that stuff through history,
Yes.
it's kind of interesting to see it out in the open, because it throughout history, when men have clubs like that, it's
Very
usually
private.
more very private.
Like the Masonic lodges and stuff. No
Right,
women in a
right,
lodge, men
exactly.
only, super secret.
Right, that kind of atmosphere. But like with them, it's out in the open and they're building waves. And that's usually what women have done in history. So I find that like fantastic that there's a group of men who are doing that in that type of circle. So I think that's great. So it tells me that there's change coming. There's change in the wind. And this, I think, is a positive thing to look forward to, even if it starts to get a little bit rocky in the next few years, which is my suspicion that things are going to get a little dark. So,
All the more
um,
reason to have our connections with each other, our networks and friendships. Yeah, it's where the power
I
is.
I completely agree. And since you guys brought it up, I was going to say I don't mean to make it like take a dark turn down this alley, but I love how we're coming together, because right now, when I look out into a lot of the world, I don't see many women coming together, or if, and I don't know, I've noticed this since I've been growing up, and uh, a lot of women can turn against one another or judge others and find problems, pick them apart, pick people apart. Um, Especially during the teenage phase, women and ladies are known for being like ruthless, and so I know we just had Mother's Day. We're really seeing a lot of kind of inversion of women and mothers, and I'm just so happy that we do gather every month so that we can regroup and do something very different from what is out there in this world. I would love to see more healthy femininity versus the cattiness, very self-centeredness, almost to the point of harming others. And yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
happy to have like you were saying, a safe and nurturing space to discuss things. Because ultimately, I think that is uh, what we all want on a core level. We know we're capable of great human connection and bonds with men and women, and um, I just don't see those genuine bonds like I used to. You might see bonds, but they're not always the healthiest expressions of those.
And a lot of it is, has jealousies and envy and,
Yeah,
all that. And, based on a lack of security in oneself, you know.
yeah,
I
there,
would agree
there,
with that assessment.
there is a lot of. I mean, you see it. It's more prevalent, I think, in the focal viewpoint in the modern times, where you can point out the inauthentic female, and you're just like, uh, um, and you can see it, and it's not really about, like, for me, it's never about how people look or what the initial presentation of who they are is. It's about ultimately their actions in the end, and if they back up what they say and think. And that's like how I go about things. And I'm not a quick judge of character. I kind of like to take my time.
I'm the same
Um,
way.
yeah, because I feel like
See the pattern.
it gives a more rounded scope of what you're looking at, and you're just like, okay, I see you now. Um, but I think it's like, because we have like the land of the internet, we have
Yes.
um media like that can be played on a loop on mainstream media, and like it's
Yeah.
just like the world is literally right in front of our face all the time versus, even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, where really it
Yeah.
wasn't like that. You didn't see every little corner of what was in the world. So I don't think that there's been a lot of change as far as the level of the representation of inauthentic women or inauthentic men. I think it's always kind of been a lot of the same. It's gotten a little bit worse
But
because we
probably
have,
access to
yeah,
everything.
there's such a high level of a push for this like kind of inaccountability for our own lives, and it's becoming
A little
easier and
victim
easier just,
mentality.
yeah, it's becoming easier not to take charge for yourself. Um, because everything's just at a click of a button, it's a one click, get it tomorrow kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, throughout history, we have history where men and women have both displayed these really toxic type of behaviors, and it's always been there. But now we see it out in
More.
the open, crystal clear, without, it's just there, and it's a bit worse, I think. But now, and I think just the solution is like now that we can really see it for what it really is, it's more in the foreground. There's things that we can do to maybe change that. I don't know if any of that really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The way I put
There's
it,
a
but
lot of confusion, I think, and mixed messages, very irrational messages out in the world around what is a woman, right? And the
I
woman's experience.
100% agree.
So there's like this neo-feminism, which is very kind of hostile towards men and will communicate a disrespect or a devaluing of the feminine roles of mothering, or, if you don't value mothers, you don't value children. And what is a world like if we don't value mothers and children? And this very anger towards, the masculine, and a lot of trends towards women sort of seeking this empowerment where they're the boss babes, over the men. And so then, it makes you think about, okay, this is a very skewed definition of femininity and what it is like to be a woman. And it almost makes it feel like, like you're putting your head out there if you talk about the value of more feminine qualities and the role of women as a partner to a masculine man, or
Oh, yeah.
having a desire to be a stay-at-home mother or to focus on nurturing and things like that. And then there's the part too where they are changing the definition of what is a woman by allowing
whatever you identify as.
Right.
Womanhood is a costume.
Right.
Get yourself a dress, girl, and
Yeah.
some makeup and long hair. Slay, baby. Now you're a woman. It's that easy.
And
But
it's
it
like
drives me nuts.
it's like negating
The experience.
the actual experience of being a woman. It's like, well, it's so bizarre. And especially because I was an athlete, and
I was a tomboy too.
right. And I was an athlete that was better. I guess I was at a higher level of athleticism, so I could compete and be winning against most women, right? Not all, but most women. So I trained a lot with men. But so, and I was in some ways better than a lot of men too, but the best men athletes, there's no way was I equal in that capacity to compete, right? Even though I was a pretty elite and could have been, and so what I'm seeing is so disrespectful to women athletes.
Yeah.
And women in general. Yeah, it's crazy making. So I think like this is like an act of rebellion almost, to speak from a woman's perspective and claim ourselves as women.
We are not a costume.
That's right. Absolutely not. Like and that's such a great way to put it. Like they're like what we were discussing earlier, they're making the whole idea of womanhood, of sisterhood, completely obsolete because now any Jack, John, and Harry could turn around and say, I'm a lady now. And I'm like, well, yeah, I
That was
could
our
be,
bathroom privacy.
it's like I could be
Just like
crass
that.
about it, but
And I
um,
have respect for people who are being authentic to themselves, that are
yeah,
searching for their identity. And I have nothing against, people who claim to be transsexual, but I have an issue with negating an experience of a woman born a female from birth, and her life experience, as somehow trying to say they're the same,
yeah,
because
We're a
we are
cis
different.
woman.
We are different, and I think this in general with a lot of these movements towards people, it's like this contradiction of claiming an identity, but by naming it in such a way, you're removing your individual identity. I'm not sure if that makes sense. It's like we're all at the base, we're all individuals and we're all unique and we have our unique experiences. And so every individual's experience should be honored, right? And as women, we clearly have a difference from men. And so our experience, we have similarities, but we're not all the same. So it's okay to have variations, but then you can't just then whitewash it all and say there's no difference. I don't know. It's a mind trip.
that makes perfect sense to me. It's like, and I mean, it's the point of life. It's the point of being alive and being alive and in this physical manifestation that we're all experiencing like different, weird, unique, bizarre, wild experiences. We're doing it on purpose so that we can have specific type of experiences and learn certain types of lessons. This is how I see it. This is how I've learned to understand this. And it's what makes sense the most to me. And yeah, I have no problem with people who are like, they want to identify as this, that, or the other thing, whatever, it's fine. I have no problem with transsexuals. I have no problem with anybody who like was born gay and like that's all fine. I have friends who are like that, but it's when it is a problem when you have men who are like they don't really fully commit and but now they're identifying as a woman and now they're going to go into a woman's sport
And claim
or
the title.
yeah, and claim the titles. Like obviously they're going to win because their biology and their anatomy is like physically just it's denser than us, it's larger than us, it's biology, it's basic biology is what that comes down to. Or like men who identify as women, but they don't commit, they don't do the surgeries, they don't do any of that
I
stuff, and
got the
then they
schlong.
yeah
It's
they
still there.
right they commit like some kind of crime, and then they go to a women's prison. And if
And
people are
then
paying
80% of those rape women, 80% of the people who identify as trans rape
yeah,
women in jail. Yeah.
Leslie, I think you're muted.
Oh no.
Sorry. Those are
No.
statistics that you've seen, Brittany?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And some people say I don't have the stat on hand. Some people claim it's more, but I'll err on the lower side that I've heard repeatedly. And I wish I had the actual cited source. I'd have to dig that up. But yeah, very, very high percentage of men who identify as trans will rape the women
yeah.
in jail.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't
it's
mind
weird.
the trans thing either. Go ahead, Leslie.
Do you know the latest? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like there's these weird things that come up in the media that become really big. Like we had the Me Too movement, right? That started out kind of had a potential to be helpful, to reveal, experiences of many girls and women, that and offer the opportunity for like a dialogue between men and women and recognize there's wounds for all of us. But it turned into this whole, it got hijacked and became
Victim
this like
Olympics.
extreme, yeah. And and hostility towards men, right? It just like didn't ended up being counterproductive. Well, now the latest one is man versus bear. Somebody raised, have
I
you
think
guys
I
heard of it?
just saw something
Right? Like
yesterday
if you
about
were in the woods, would you feel more safe to see, if you're in the woods by yourself as a woman, are you more safe to run into a bear or a man? And all these people, women are pouring out saying they'd rather be in the woods with a bear. And so it's
not me. He
brought
ain't
up.
gonna make me a fire and go catch us some food that I'll cook.
So there's like all these interesting things that have potential for productive dialogue, but generally tend to polarize people instead. And that's what's unfortunate, right? And
yeah. No, I totally agree. And like with the trans thing, I also don't care what someone individually chooses to identify as, but the mama bear comes out of me, Mother's Day, mama bear, like when you try to push it onto the kids, you know, and it's like, I really do feel like this is an entire inversion of the gender roles, you know. If you can confuse the basic, like everyone learns first and foremost when they're growing as a baby, like, and then into a toddler, you're a girl, you're a boy. If you can confuse somebody on your gender, you can convince them of anything. Like if you can distort something so basic like that, what wouldn't someone believe?
Right.
You know, I'm a man today. You know, I played softball, I took martial arts and volleyball and all this. Like, man, I'm just happy because my mom is a Democrat. I'm happy I was raised over here because if I was raised in California and I was growing up all over again, I might have to get a surgery and never be able to have my children again. Like it's sad, but I don't mind what someone's going through on their own and how they want to express themselves, but I do get fired up when it comes towards the kids. Like, don't confuse the children.
Who's protecting the children?
Yeah, the moms, women a lot of the times are the reasons why this stuff, like women can be a very powerful force, but women are the ones really advocating for stuff like this. And I think it is because we're really feeling based and feminine and we can relate and have empathy and care for other people. But I think men can sometimes logic and see things better, and their protection is needed too. Because sometimes if women don't see things right, they allow things that can be very dangerous.
Right. If you're clouded by the empathy for the
and
emotions
all the feelings,
and the
sometimes
expressions,
the emotions can cloud the logic. And I don't think you just need logic, and I don't think you just need emotions. I think we need both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tricky because, you know, I work as a therapist, psychotherapist, social worker, and
I see a lot.
So I talk to a lot of people who have been violated as children in different ways. And the worst, you know, let's say it's a father molesting a child, right, their own child, or an uncle or a grandfather. And if it goes on for any period of time, if the mother is not protecting the child, rescuing the child, admitting, seeing and responding and making the child the priority, that is the deeper wound often.
I'm glad that you say that because, and I'm not going to go into detail because I respect my youngest's privacy. That is why I went in for custody of my youngest. And I just took what she said very seriously, and I went for court. And and it's rough. And I'm glad you said that because it makes me feel, I mean, I felt really scared, but solid in that choice. But I'm glad that I didn't just allow it. It's
powerful. That's where the mama bear matters, right? And we all need to stay in touch with that and that loyalty to our children, right? When they're young, especially, and the sensitivity to that. And it's really kind of confusing because, you know, a lot of women, they seek partnership of a man if they've broken up with the father of their children. And then, you know, as women, as a single mom, it's really hard. So, you know, to meet our needs, you know, we may seek a partner, but then there's often an ignoring of the child's experience or glossing over, you know, things that happen too fast or discounting their feelings, their thoughts, right? And can be very hard. And I'm talking really from my own experience as a mom, you know, where I didn't listen closely enough in a way to my children. And now, I've learned, right, in hindsight and in really hearing them, and I've been studying a lot of history lately. I've been really getting off on kind of studying history and studying my ancestry. And what I noticed when you look through history, that children were not seen as really to be seen and heard. They were not, yeah, or they were put to work really young. They were like even the king's children, were taught to be a king, or separated from their mothers, or, there's so much lack of nurturing and really consideration of a child's feelings and their impact. So then you wonder why the children who grow up to be adults, are violating morality, like there's pattern after pattern.
They tolerate it their whole life. So it's just normal.
They never, okay. Really had their own sense of full self and true nurturing and validation as humans. So we're all I feel like becoming, like Mark Passio talks about self-loathing or the cycle of victim and abuser in a way over time, because children have historically not been totally seen, heard, nurtured, valued. And so today, when I'm seeing memes about, International Mother's Days is not about celebrating mothers and householders. I get upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And because I think it is one thing to be, to feel feminine and even identify as a feminine force. It's another thing to be biologically female and have the capabilities that we have, which is a gift of being able to, and this is whether or not a biological woman has a child or not. I feel like all women have it within them. It's like it doesn't matter whose child is. I mean, unless they're like just a psychopath. Yeah, like unless they're like unless they're like the rare, I would say 3%, less than 3% of naturally born psychopaths out in the world. It is a natural thing for women, whether they give birth or not, that you're protective over children because it's part of I think personally, it's part of who we are inside. It's like a subconscious trait that we have. We don't want to see any child under any kind of damage. And we do our best, and sometimes we make mistakes and that happens.
Part of the learning process.
Yeah. I mean, and that alone, I think the reason why it's becoming, or it seems like such an unnatural thing for women to be the natural nurturer of the new generation that comes next, is because we're living in such a bizarrely fractured, disorganized, emotionally dysfunctional world. And it can't be anything other than, it can't be an accident. I don't see this as an accident. This is grand design. It's like if the Parasite class came out and thought okay, how are we going to destroy these people to a point, not where they're all extinct, but they remain the slave class we would like them to be. How do we keep them there? Oh, I know. We're not just going to oppress them with violent government and coercion. We're going to subdue their ability to properly integrate thought and emotion within their action. So everything that everybody does is straight to action instead of using thought and emotion in that formula. So which I think is so important. Like you have to have all three and you got to do it in that order. As far as I can see it, you can't mix that shit up because it's going to go awry and you're going to have negative consequences. And every instant I can think back where I didn't properly evaluate things, whether I understood this kind of information or not, like I could go back before I even started really evaluating this stuff and I could see what I did and where I went wrong and how I went wrong, why I went wrong. I could see how I made the mistake. It was always because I didn't properly evaluate thought and emotion before I just went for whatever action. And this is, I think this is one of the biggest problems that is causing the inauthentic women. And you have, like, you can't even say that you're a feminist anymore. You have to say something like, I'm a traditional feminist. And
Yeah,
that
there's
makes,
different feminism now, like feminists now.
which there shouldn't be. But now in a modern world, we have all the like neo-feminism and stuff, and you've got to be like extremely clear and particular and careful about how you speak about things like this because people are going to throw you all into the same boat and make a snap judgment. And so I think because we are living in this like world where we are purposefully being assaulted in this way, it's like psychological warfare. Um, and women can have a great influence on our communities and on our children, and in our homes. It's fracturing that ability to operate in our most natural selves. So that's how I kind of
Yeah.
see things.
Like the social engineer agenda, whether it's always like they planned ahead or they're just exploiting an opportunity. But I think another aspect of
Both.
that is disrupting the masculine feminine, right? And creating more compartmentalization. So that both within ourselves, because we have both qualities, it's like the yin and the yang, the circle of dark is in the light and the circle of light is in the dark. So as a generally more, as a woman, I'm naturally more feminine. And I think that probably naturally people have different percentage ratios on that continuum, for due to a lot of different reasons, right? From environmental to genetic and how those things interact or whatever, but we're unique. But for the most part, females have more feminine, and that we, so, and then there's the masculine man in women, right? So when they mess with this idea of gender, then it's messing with and creating a compartmentalization, right? That it's harder to find the inner and outer balance. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's been hijacked and then almost like so controversial. Like what things we're saying today, in the background, I'm thinking like, wow, this is like controversial stuff, and that's so weird. Like,
no, I totally agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. Yuri, yeah, Yuri Bezmenov from like the 1980s. He's a former KGB agent. And I think he comes from Russia or Prussia, over there where there's communism. And he talks about how they program generations like decades in advance, and by the decade. And he talks about, one of the first steps is demoralizing society. And I think it's kind of both of what you were saying, Leslie, of like, well, is it this big plan thing? I think yes. And then, but all the details are, let's improvise. Oh, let's exploit this opportunity. We've had veganism where I see that could be awesome, but maybe it's not awesome for everybody yet. It's being pushed. And now, they're trying to sell bugs to us, bug proteins and feminism. It's no longer about, okay, women, deserve to be able to compete and have their own sport too. Oh, by the way, now we're going to celebrate full-term abortions. It's like any little thing. I avoid anything that's popularized in the masses because it seems like it's always exploited and hijacked. But I think it's a little bit of both. And it definitely makes it hard to to connect with yourself, not so much to yourself, but to weave through all the programs. I really think that there's about, at least this has been me and Brian's experience, about 8 to 10 years of just straight healing. Live your life, but clean things up as you go. Get rid of stuff that doesn't serve you. Change your behaviors that are not as healthy. And then, you're always and forever growing and changing and transforming. But there were about 8 to 10 years of just straight shadow work and undoing all these things before now I'm like, I really know myself at this point, but it took me a long time to feel that way. And I don't doubt I'm going to change. I'm sure I will. But all the external stimuli, I guess, like with what you were saying with the internet, making everything so accessible earlier, Sarah, we all have like so much stimuli, so many contradicting messages. So it takes some time and effort to figure out, your core.
Yeah, that's a really good
that's
point.
A little chaotic.
Very chaotic and confusing. And when you are looking outward to find the truth, in a way, you're going to just find a bunch of contradictions and confusion. You're going to have to
look inward at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And discover it through, like you said, weeding through all the distorted messages and programs.
Yeah. And like I people tell me a lot like now, oh, there's so much more of this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, with media, like we just hear about it more, and I think it has gotten worse, like I said. But I think we have always had some of these problems in our communities, and we don't see everything. And now you've got mainstream media that's fully owned and operated, and you never really know. You could be running the same story on two different networks, but they're titled differently, and they got
catered to each audience.
Yeah, it's like saying this is happening, and then this story is saying this is happening, and that happens all the time, all over the world. People are not being given the same messages. They're not being given the same news. That it could be
makes it hard to discern.
It makes it
unless it's an agenda that is,
and then it's exactly the same. That is so true.
Like the COVID narrative. Around the world, like the Project Mockingbird, where they had those little clips where they would show the same exact words being spoken from like
all the news anchors.
Yeah, all the news anchors.
Oh, they blocked that one from my Facebook when I posted that, but it finally became visible last year again. It just took like 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I will be right back. I've got a full tank. I got to go to the bathroom. But I'll be back.
Go ahead.
But yeah, that kind of thing alone can make it very difficult for people to even come close to being on the same page, or being able to put whatever small, minute differences they have with each other aside for a second to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So that can make it very difficult. So it divides us in so many different ways, just confusing the noise that is there. And the parasite class, I have said it before in some of my writings, they're not creative. These are not creative people. They take what's already there. They use the same old playbook over and over and have for centuries. They take whatever there. If we come up with something and we put it out there, they take that and they distort all that shit and make it noise and turn it into something very confusing where you don't understand what it's supposed to be about, and make it just generally a very difficult global community where we cannot unite in any way. We can't even be friends. Like you look at, Facebook posts or other social media posts or Reddit or whatever the forums are, and every single person just about is arguing with each other. They're all saying something contradictory to each other, or they themselves will say one sentence and it contradicts themselves. Or they're just like deciding they're going to put out some like nasty shit comment, because
Mm-hmm.
they just want to like say something and be part of the group because deep down
Mm-hmm.
inside everybody wants to kind of be part of that community,
Yeah.
but because they're conditioned or because of whatever problem they are having or whatever viewpoint they've been led to believe, they 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 just say something nasty because that's all that can come out of their mouths. That's
Right.
all that they can do.
Or there's a lot of people who are so polarized in one opinion, and then they're posting an interpretation of something based on that bias. And if you dare kind of offer something slightly alternative, you get like your head bitten off. So it's like this, there's no true debate. There's no true like, rational, kind of emotionally regulated conversation. A lot of it isn't about really trying to discover the truth. There's, especially on social media, like you can say things that you would never say in person. I had an idea of like creating a challenge for people to like maybe write a post to ask a question for people's opinions. But the rule is that you can't write your answer. You have to get on video and show your face and share it verbally so that you're seen.
I like that idea. I just
That
don't
is
know that I believe that people have the courage to do that, or uh not that they don't have the ability to make time, but maybe they won't. But I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And then I think, go ahead, Sarah.
I know. I'm just going to say, I think that is an absolutely great idea.
It would give people, one, you have to think about what you're saying more carefully if your face
Yeah.
is showing. And that's important. I think that we should think carefully about what we say.
Yeah.
And we should feel like we can say it and feel proud. Oh, look at my thumbs up. And feel proud that are not proud, but be aligned, be in a alignment with what we say, so that we can say it with our face shown, right? I think that's important. Right. And I think it's also a way for people to get practice saying things in a public forum with their face showing. And maybe like I would love to see more women, bring the feminine perspective into the natural law and freedom movements. And a lot of times it's insecurities that keep women from putting their face on camera. And even me, I struggle with like, the Zoom, like wipes out all the wrinkles. We look beautiful. Sometimes I'll videotape in my car and I'm like, oh my God, I can't show that. Like, aww. And so women, a lot of times women struggle with that, it's not just me, so we have to face our insecurities and our sense of being judged, right? And you got to work through your own shit to put your voice out there and your face and your name.
So true.
Right. Exactly. I mean, really, it's like, I think, women and all people really are the most beautiful when they just come correct as they landed into this world, because, that's who we are and that's how we were formed. That's how we're made. And it has become a real thing, I think, where women are, not that I'm against women using makeup or anybody using makeup, but it's become such a thing now in the modern world where women's like, I got to put my face on. And I'm like, yeah, but you're only going to Walmart. And, it's like this big, like, to do all the time. And I'm like, I've become so out of sync with all that kind of stuff myself. So like, I never really even think about that stuff anymore. But I've been doing that for years now where I'm just like, I don't care. I'm married. What do I care? What do I care what you think I look like? I got my set done, I'm done. So it's like, I'm rolling up to whatever store in like flip-flops and sweatpants. And I'm like, what? So I never really think about that myself, but that took like, years to kind of get really used to that. And even like for years, like I didn't really primp or do that kind of stuff. And I still kind of sometimes felt a little bit insecure about it, like I look like a slob or whatever. And then I kind of realized that this is what I look like. So I kind of feel okay with that. Like, really, people might be lucky if I brush my hair more than a couple times a week. That's how, like, I may have gotten a little bit too lazy,
To relax.
too relaxed.
It's interesting of like what is beauty, right?
Yeah.
For a woman. I noticed the trend right now is like false eyelashes or like woven eyelashes.
Like
So
spider legs.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, like just to be, my kids' generation, like you got to have the big eyelashes. Everything has to be big. Now they're
And
like
lip
bubble
injections.
butts. Yeah. There's weirdness about exaggerating a woman's biology in a way that also makes it like unreal.
Actually, that's something that Brian tells me so much because I do a little bit of makeup. I finally found a happy medium, but I think it should be like a picture frame, like, eyes, but not a mask. And he tells me he is so kind of detracted and almost the level of disgusted at how synthetic beauty has become. Now all like we all have different shaped lips and stuff, right? Well, now with those lip injections, those are getting real popular. Everyone really is starting to kind of look the same. And very unnatural. And like 2 years, I think I mentioned this in one of our prior podcasts. I didn't wear makeup for like 2 years to try to work on my insecurities and stuff like that. And now I do a little bit of makeup every day. But I'm kind of striking that balance of like, what do I think is beautiful? What's an accent? But I don't want it to cover me up. And
right.
But I still like it to look more natural, not.
And how to deal with signs of aging too, and those insecurities that pop up, and how the judgment seems to be in the public arena somewhat. But is it really, or is that the conditioning? And I've always been like super on the natural side, but when I was with my first husband to be, like he was from Mexico, and his sister came and totally like evaluated my haircut, my not using makeup. Like she wanted to remake me somehow.
So like
it was so
like
weird.
An evaluation, like admiration, and just take you in. It was like a what can I change, or let me evaluate you so I can
hair
change you.
Isn't very like it's not doesn't have a style. Like does she wear makeup? Like let me take her shopping. Let me take her to get a haircut. There, it was weird. Like I wasn't okay the way I was.
Yeah.
Right.
I would probably not handle us. Like Spicy Brittany would come through and burn.
I wish I had that. I wish I had that.
You're gonna accept me or adios.
Yeah, I didn't have that spirit, and that was missing from me. I see that my daughters wouldn't probably, especially my youngest, she wouldn't allow that. But I was kind of too flexible. But I also like didn't really embrace it. I didn't understand it. I was really confused by it, actually.
Yeah, like what does that mean? How am I supposed to interpret your sister?
Yeah, like
it's weird.
I think I would kind of be like that too a little bit. Maybe when I was younger, I'd be like, okay, I guess we're doing that now. But as I got older, I think I would pick up more of the attitude like, well, what do you mean by that? Is there something wrong
with? It's a developed thing. Well, for some of us. Maybe some people are born with it. I wasn't either.
But with the stuff like the exaggerated facial features and stuff like that, it reminds me it's a very like anime-ish look. And you see that like I watched anime when I was younger.
Yeah, me too. My kids love that stuff.
Yeah, and like I actually always thought like it was one of the things that made me love to draw and do that kind of stuff was because of I just thought the exaggeration in the art was like kind of beautiful and unique and just stood out. But I feel like that's kind of where it belongs in the land of fantasy and not on us, because like not in the real world. Like it's fun to play, it's fun to cosplay. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. Like that stuff's
Hmm.
fun. I mean, you go with your friends or your family and whatever, you go to a convention and that could be fun and
Dress up,
whatever.
have fun for a day. Yeah.
Right. But to make it a lifestyle like all the time, um, I think this can cause, yeah, insecurity issues long term, issues with like how you're perceived, and people that you meet. That's what you're giving them. Like you're coming, that's what you're representing yourself as to the world. And people who you meet after you're like that, this is who they think you are. And then maybe one day you change. And those people who attach to you based off of that kind of exaggerated look about you, they're just like, I don't get it. Like, what happened? What do you
What's
like?
wrong with you?
Yeah, they're suddenly not okay with who you are, even though that's who you were originally. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm against that stuff. I mean, have some fun with it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
like I don't care really, but it's like you can still do that and still be who you really are instead of the persona you are with that exaggeration. And like
Be comfortable with both.
yeah, and
Yeah. Play and dress up and I think that that in a way is something that the feminine enjoys is that creative expression and the phases and rhythms of life. And it makes life fun, when you can dress up in a lot of different ways, and you can, I don't know, there's kind of
yeah,
No,
cool.
it's a historical thing too. Women always bedazzle themselves in
Hmm.
history. Even before all this technology, they were like crushing shells and different spices and things to make like red paint. And for certain
Hmm.
occasions, they would make shell necklaces and paint themselves pretty. And
yeah,
I think that's accurate. Like women
yeah,
are
Yeah.
naturally kind of creative and they like pretty
Yeah.
things. And then if they have they have their own self. It's like I can make this pretty too. Like make everything
Yeah.
pretty. Like
And it's like
yeah,
the association of the feminine with like nature in all its seasonal expressions and the colors and the elements, right? That is part of our natural, authentic being. Yeah.
absolutely. Like imagination, having imagination is one of our greatest traits as far as I can see. And the parasite class certainly doesn't have any because they steal all of our ideas and then like fuck it
Yeah.
up. But imagination is an important trait to have as long as we don't fall into the pit of full-time fantasy land. And then that's where we live forever in our heads. And,
I agree.
we understand that there's a difference between fantasy, and real life and imagination, especially as a kid, allowing your child to practice different methods of imagination, in whatever ways that they're kind of feeling naturally inclined to go in healthy ways, obviously. This allows them to grow into more authentic people who can think more strategically, more creatively, think a little bit outside of the box when you have to turn this way instead of that way. Um, like getting your kid a D&D starter set like Dungeons and Dragons and letting your kid play Dungeons and Dragons, I feel is like some people they're like, no, don't give your kids like games and whatever.
We do games here. I never played
Yeah,
that. I always
like
wanted to try it.
some parents are like really like about that, and I understand why. Um,
But
but
that's a very creative game, right? And
yeah,
and I think that when you are given as a child the ability to create, it is an empowering experience,
yeah,
right? And
and
it's one
done,
of those things that helps create free thinking.
yeah,
I
hmm
agree.
absolutely, because you no longer are walking down the narrow hallway. You see all the doors that are
Yeah.
opening as you walk down.
Yeah.
And games like Dungeons and Dragons, like teaching your kid how to play something like that has like that kind of intricacy in it. It makes them think. It makes them, think creatively. It gives them that avenue to be able to create a world, and create this whole new beautiful fantasy world, and they get to create a character and their own little superhero. But D, I've always found D&D very helpful for that. And it can be inspiring art wise, for people who like to draw and stuff. It really encourages that. So,
well, the ruling class, the elite, rulers really wouldn't want us to be too free thinking and creative about what the world could become because then we're less likely to be following the rules and walking the straight line.
That's it, or the rules that they want us to follow.
They
actually go on, Leslie.
Well, go ahead and finish your point.
There was actually a movie made in the 80s with I won't say who. But it was a movie. It was called Mages and Dungeons. I'll look it up. But it was basically a movie that was put out, and I feel like it was a movie that was making stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, because that's when it first started coming out, look bad. It was some sort of evil thing to give your kids, and it's going to turn them into Satanists or whatever, which is hilarious if you think about it. So it was this whole movie to make, and there were a lot of parents who were like, oh my God, this is terrible. We can't let our kid, they really fell for it. And it really made it just look like stuff creative, games that encourage creative thought processes were a bad thing, because you had stuff like dragons and wizards and stuff were involved in
a lot of fundamental kind of Christian parents don't want their children learning fantasy or studying, reading Harry Potter or things like that.
Yeah.
I'm a little aware of the time. I've my daughter who wants to do something with me later, but I wanted to bring this conversation in the direction a bit of the name Girls Club, because I think it is related to this idea of imagination, and also related to the value of children, and why would, obviously we are grounded enough to know we are women, we're not children anymore, and yet there's a lot of reason that I embrace the name. And we had somebody actually kind of criticize the name, and it's got me really thinking and wanting to respond to that. So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about that. And I maybe start with you, Sarah, because I think that you were the first one to come up with that name.
Well, yeah, I think maybe I threw it out there to see if that sounded like something everybody would like. And I wanted to, I was trying to come up with something we could call our group as a group that was inviting to all. And what I mean by that is that it's not giving us one particular subject matter. It's not just saying we're going to be talking about natural law or occultism or spirituality only. I didn't want to make it so that because I encounter this a lot working with the public in the community, where people tend to not get involved with something because they come up to a group or a podcast or whatever it is, and they won't get involved in it. They won't interact with it. They won't, because it's almost intimidating, because it's got a word on it that, is maybe a big word, like a $10 word is how I would put that. And, maybe you have to look it up so you can actually see what the word means. And not that people are dumb and don't understand things. It's just that stuff. Like sometimes if you make things more than what I feel like they should be, like sometimes simple is better. And it's more inviting, and it makes it so that people feel a little bit more comfortable with approaching you and finding out what's this about. And I've had a better response from people online and out in the real world, like out in the physical community, where if I made something sound really kind of chic and like, really like too intelligent, maybe for just the base
Uppity,
interface.
kind of
Yeah.
uppity, yeah.
Not that I'm not against that. Like I think, people should like call whatever they're doing, whatever inspires them to call it that. Because that's coming from within them. That's like what their first impulse was. And usually my first impulse is to kind of keep things really simple. So when I thought about it, like what would I call a group like this? I was like, well, why not we just call it the Girls Club? It says exactly what we are, and it can be interpreted very easily about what we are about and what we're going to maybe talk about. And, I thought it also sounded a little bit more fun, because it's like if you're like going to go out and hang out with a bunch of women, you're like, oh, you have a girls' night out. You have
What's a woman nowadays, anyways? Just sounds like a confusing word. We don't even know what the definition of a woman is. So let's just take that word and just toss it over our left shoulder and pick something different.
Right. So
tongue in cheek.
I thought it would be almost refreshing, I guess,
yeah,
to have a group of people who are talking about these issues and stuff like natural law, stuff like spirituality, but we're also pretty grounded in the day-to-day lives of what needs to be done in the physical, and I found like when I started, I was the same way with my other group that I've had for years, and I just recently started it. When I started my knitting group, and I had the same experience where there's knitting groups all up and down the board, and they all have like really like trendy or cool or catchy kind of names, and I'm like, well, I I wanted something that really like told people what the group was really, what was it for. So I actually got the name from a cartoon show called Bob's Burgers. And one of the funniest characters in it is the school counselor. Like, and anybody who's watched the show would know who I'm talking about. But he's just this like school counselor, and he's like really kind of like goofy and like eccentric a little bit. Like he does things like make crochet dolls and stuff like that. So he made this one of his sweaters that he made said knitters for life. And I'm like, that's it. I love it. I got it. I got to make it. So, I mean, and it just worked so perfectly. And people responded to it because it felt like, oh, this is a group where it's people and not just some knitting group where a bunch of like old ladies get together and darn socks and chit chat. It actually we've had so many different people come into the group, women, men, children, anybody, like everybody, like no matter who they are or what they're experiencing. We had people who were we've had people who were public figures come in and join our group. People who were homeless would come in and join our group. So it was designed as a group that was for everybody. and for everybody to come in and understand that, it doesn't matter who we are, where we are, what our status is. We're part of the same family community. And that's what I was trying to build. So with the girls club, my idea was that if I could get some women involved, and this was a women's group, and we came in and we talked about the things that were important to us, this may help. And it's light and it's inviting, hopefully. It may help other women to kind of go, yeah, I really want to do that kind of thing. I've been wanting to do that kind of thing, but I don't know how to start doing that kind of thing. And I have these things that hold me back, emotionally or spiritually. And I thought maybe if just one person created a group like that and then built it with a few friends, it would help to sort of break those walls down.
Yeah, I love it. I love the name, and it did bring that sense of fun and lightness, and reminded me of an age of myself that I really actually enjoyed, sort of that preteen, the period of time that is like, I was like building tree houses, and I was a deep thinker, and it was sort of like a phase before things in life really became difficult,
all responsibilities,
and even like adolescence, puberty, and all of the things that sort of distract from that kind of free-spirited young girl, right? So yeah. Brittany, what do you think about the name, and what is your thought about your response?
Yeah, I honestly feel very similarly, Leslie. And I love that you wanted it to be more casual, Sarah. It's the same thing, it kind of brings me back. The name itself, is nostalgic feeling, where it's kind of like the essence of that purity, where we just have the freedom to talk about whatever we want, and it doesn't really matter. And like you said, before life really starts kicking in, you got all these responsibilities, all these things you have to focus on. And yeah, being a girl, you didn't have all that. You were more free, and I love that essence, and how, yeah, we're obviously women. You're not going to get on here and see a little 4-year-old and 8-year-old. So hopefully anyone who clicks on our video will know that at the thumbnail. But I love the lightheartedness, the nostalgic feeling, the comfort, the safety, the security, the sense of expression, not having to really edit ourselves, and just talk about whatever topic we want to focus on. And like women, it might be here, it might be there, less straight and linear like a man. Well, this isn't the dudes club. It's a girls club. So,
exactly.
And we'll maybe invite a guy, and he'll, help direct us a little bit, keep us focused and straight. But, I just like the freedom and how we gather.
Yeah, totally. So well said. Yeah. So one of the comments that kind of irked me was this thing about focus on the sacred feminine, right? So I'm going to make the point that the child archetype is sacred. Okay. Let's not think that the female child, the girl, isn't a sacred aspect or expression of the feminine. And it's like thinking that it's not, and that the sacred feminine is all about, dressing up like a goddess, and it's like, that's missing the true point of the feminine. That's, that is just one expression, one mood, right? But the real feminine is about the innocent, and the vulnerable, and the receptive, the child. The child is a symbol of the feminine, And so I wanted to share something a little bit more esoteric, I guess. From a book called Priestess of Avalon, Priestess of the Goddess by Kathy Jones. It's about kind of the Lady of Avalon, the Son of the Goddess tradition in England, in Glastonbury, and specifically, I'm going to change my glasses. There's something in the tradition called the Nine Morgans. And if I can read it. Okay. And I thought I'd read a little bit because I wanted to share some of this because it's said better than what I can say. So the Nine Morgans are nine sisters who are the essence of the feminine in nature, in the weather and in womankind. So some of the variations of this are the Dakinis, known as sky dancers, space goers, celestial women, cloud fairies, Valkyries, and Furies. Elemental in character, they're said to be pristine and peerless. They are the feminine principle of wisdom that manifests in female forms to benefit all human beings. They are wisdom protectors, and they beckon to us through vibration and sound. They help us to overcome our resistances on the spiritual path. And I like that because I feel like it sort of states some of our mission. And there are imagined as 9 women ranging in age from maiden to crone. There is 1 Morgan for each decade of life. And the age of that I wanted to share is the maiden or the girl. Her name is Thetis. And there's a name for the Lady of Avalon. They call it Nolava, the maiden. Nolava, the maiden, is the innocence of the child who welcomes incarnation on this beautiful planet, who is unafraid of the future, who is excited to be alive. She gives and receives love from all those around her. She needs to be honored, nurtured, and cared for by all who seek her inspiring touch. She's the swan maiden. That's my cat's tail. And the maiden, Nolava, the maiden, is new, reborn from the old. And it's kind of like what we're seeking to do with at this time, of activism, to bring back, something, a new birth for our humanity, to birth something new, right? And she is all that is rebirthed after the dead days of winter and discarnation. She's the returning light after darkness. And so there is a poem that I'll read just to finish by a woman named Sophie Pullinger called Honoring Thetis, the Maiden Morgan. I am Thetis, I am. I am maiden, I am. I am she who rises like a serpent from the hole. On the wings of my swan, of my grace, of my soul. I am the spirit that is always new within you. I am that which is ever reborn. I am the soft white ewe's milk that flows every spring. I am the rising phoenix and the unicorn. I am the wet, strong winds of the emerging butterflies of your heart. I am the quickening spark of inspiration from whence all new beginnings start. All children gather in the protective folds of my skirts to hear the poems I tell, to hear my stories and sounds of the future, to hear my heart and voice ring out like a bell. For I am the soft pastel colors that swirl and dance at the dawning of the day. As the sun rises, the potential I carry is birthed in a new way. Let me stir your deepest well with my rod of lightning love and unlock your frozen waters. Let the warm power of healing herbs and love be carried by each of my daughters. May you each be blessed with a spark of excitement that grows with each passing hour. For the time has come, as foretold in our prophecies, when this blessed Isle of Avalon is emerging from the mist like a flower. I like that.
Lovely.
That's beautiful. And
and there's my daughter bookmark. She made a picture of her.
Oh,
it is something of this age.
That's beautiful. And you're absolutely right. We'll put a link to that book in the description.
Yeah. I'll try to, I meant to write it up a little bit or, so that we could share it with our notes too.
Yeah, if you can
Yeah.
write it up, I'll put that in for people so that they can review it if they choose to. But that's it exactly. And that's a great thing to point out is that I feel that we are now coming up to a crossroads as far as the physical manifestation of women, femininity, of what we represent, of who we are naturally, um, however that physical expression comes out. And we're at a crossroads here where um, women need to, if they don't want to see the feminine side of reality of who we are, of what we are inside, what we are outside. If you don't want to see that die off, we need to start standing our ground and throwing our hat into the ring. And it's important for us, even though I know that women, naturally women, we like to hang back a little bit because, we're the inside to the outside. I feel like we hold that spot, um, we are the, we are the support we can be the support to the full on action. Like we tend to be very good at that. So we're very comfortable being in the background. Um, and I understand that. And I feel that way as well, but I feel like we really need to start, just going outside of our comfort zones, throwing our hat into the ring and be like, no, 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 it's going to be like this because that's what's healthy for us. It's healthy for us. It's healthy for the people in our lives. It's healthy for our children. And I would invite anybody who would like to say their piece on the Girls Club. You can come contact one of us, send us a message on Facebook or whatever. You can email us. We all have access to a link tree where you can find our email. And that will be in the information in the description as usual. Very easy to find. If you have a piece you would like to say, if you have something to say, contact us because we want to hear from you. And whether you're a woman or a man, whether you're, whether you're homosexual or trans or whatever, it's all the same to us. Like we want to hear from the people out in the world and what they really think, because it can be difficult to, like when you see all the stuff on the internet, social media and mainstream media, and like all we're getting is like it's just this one way, and I don't think that's the case. So I don't think the real voices out there who are experiencing their own unique expressions are being heard. I don't think that there is I don't think we are hearing the truth. So
I agree with you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, we want to hear from you. So that's just a beautiful passage. I'm definitely going to add that in and see if I can't find a link to where people can maybe go and look for that book itself. So do you have any thoughts as well, Brittany?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely open to people sharing their thoughts, but if it comes from a place of trying to change us and stuff, I might not respond so warm and cozy. So just heads up.
Yeah.
Like if you want to just share your thoughts, cool. But if you're trying to get us to change something, well, I think we're all unanimously happy with the name as it is. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's, bring a spirit of collaborative exchange, reciprocal sharing with a spirit of patience, compassion, open-mindedness, curiosity, like kids, curious, ask questions, be open, have compassion. It's like really important, that spirit, because it's from that place, which I think, is more true to the feminine. That's where I think we can really make ground. We can come together, forge understanding, true understanding, and then unite together, right? Like you said, Sarah, in the beginning, the little PICU stuff, that doesn't matter so much, but there's some core importance that we can all join hands on and move together in our unique ways.
Yeah. And that might sound really corny to people, but really that's what builds a community. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to have differences. We're supposed to maybe see things a little bit differently this way or that way. But it's about where we're going. And if we all can agree, like, we want things to be honest, we want things to be free, we want things to be healthy. We all have the same main goals, and that's what's important. That's what brings us together in that community. So yeah, when I will amends, I will say, we want to hear from you. We're open to discussion. We want to hear your views. If you have questions that are coming from an honest place, please do contact us. But we ain't going to take any shit from you. So yeah, that's right. Because this is the girls club.
Yeah. So we're care and self-defense. Right. We have both pillars.
That's absolutely right. So I think we're almost at 2 hours, so I think we're gonna wrap it up for this week. So any closing thoughts or anything you guys want to say before we close off?
Well, just thank you for anyone who's watching. And it looks like we're going to be on the Libercast coming up soon with Fred Gingras. He's going to interview us. And so if anyone else wants to have some conversations with us, that would be fun.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to be calling you, Fred. So we're looking forward to that. So you guys out there, stay tuned for that announcement. We'll put it up on Facebook and whatever other social media we're using. And
yeah,
that's what we got.
Yeah. And shout out to Brittany Page Anderson. Hope she's well, and we miss her, and can't wait till she's back in our little group here, like the four, the feminine number 4.
Yep, we love you. We were thinking about you.
Yeah.
So, yep. Any final thoughts, Brittany?
No, I'm just happy and content, and I love our discussions. I'm happy to see how it's taken off on Rumble. I just didn't expect that. So it was just I had no expectations. I was just like, all right, ladies, let's do it and see what happens. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Cool.
So all of y'all.
So that's really motivating.
Yeah. I finally added a Rumble page too. So now I'm on Rumble, Leslie Powers, and adding Girls Club, Dissolving the Divide, and some Alive and Thriving, and interviews and things. So,
all your everything.
Yeah, just kind of shove it all in.
Nice.
But so far I haven't gotten everything on Rumble, but I think I got Girls Club and Dissolving the Divide. Yeah, there's a lot.
You got a lot, so I understand that taking some time.
Yeah, but I'm going to take off, ladies. It's been really fun to talk. I love it. I appreciate it. And Sarah, thank you so much for getting this off the ground and bringing us together.
You're welcome. It's always my pleasure. And so thank you, everybody, for watching, and everybody who continues to watch. Thank you for all your support. Till next time, this is the end of number 7. Next month will be number 8. So don't miss that. Thank you so much. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.